Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay? I wanted to talk this year about subjects that interacted with the Soul Matters subjects that would occur every month. And this month, the theme of Soul Matters is deep listening. And I would like to share with you a story about the first time I ever saw a real live example of deep listening. It was around 1995. I was the minister at the church in Jacksonville, Florida, which is an unusual city. It's the city boundaries are coextensive with the county, so it has about 800,000 people in the city. Very diverse population. And in around 1995, there was a tragic incident of a young black man being shot by a police officer at what should have been just a simple stop for speeding or something like that. And it caused a furor in the city. And at that time, there was a lot of good leadership in the city that had taken great care in trying to create structures that would create unity. So City Council was connected with the Jacksonville Foundation and the United Way and the Urban League and Jacksonville Endowment Foundation and other organizations were well connected. And so what happened is that after this shooting occurred, there was a feeling by the city fathers and mothers that the city was in danger of imminent violence. And so all of these leaders got together informally, very quickly, and said, we're going to have to do something to prevent a problem from happening. And so one of the things they decided to do is to hold a town hall on TV, live TV, at the local public broadcasting station. And so to this event we're invited. Let me set the scene for you. So if you can imagine a space a little bit bigger than this, and this was live on television. It was going to be an hour-long program. And up on the stage was the mayor, the district attorney, and a city councilman, and somebody else. I forgot who, but it was considered to be a city leader. And then on this side of the audience, for 2 rows deep, the seats were about 10 seats wide, was the sheriff. The boss of bosses for the police was sitting right here, and all of his lieutenants, and he had all these stars on his shirt and everything, and so it looked very impressive. And then right over here was the leader of the NAACP, the leader of the Urban League, the head of the Council of Black Churches in Jacksonville, et cetera. And so they had a lot of leaders on both sides. And this whole thing was staged so as to convey the message of unity. And I was there because I was very active in the city at the time, and a lot of activists had been invited. So there were probably at least 75 people there. But these first 2 rows had people who were considered to be leaders in opposing camps in this situation. Well, this went on very well, and everybody was saying, everybody who spoke first, and it was all these people got to speak. And then in the second half of the program, the guy who was the MC, who was part of the television station, he said, does anybody have any questions they would like to ask this group of people? And it went really well. And it was viewed by a lot of people in the city at the time. It was very well publicized. And things really went magnificently until about the last 5 minutes. And this guy who was moving the mic around was looking for people to say one more word to close out the hour. And there was a guy, and I was seated about right there, and there was a guy, young white guy, who was seated towards the back, and he was in his late 20s. And he got up, and they gave him the mic, and he said, well, I think that white people should start an organization like the NAACP, except for white people, because our rights as white people are being denied. I was turned away from a job with the police station, and when he said that, I was seated right there, and the chief of police was seated right here. He turned around and gave this guy the look of death that came right across my shoulder. It was like, buddy, I will kill you. And he had all his lieutenants here. And so people were thinking, you know, how did this guy get in here? But the guy who was running the program very deftly closed out the meeting on a note of unity, and it was considered to be a very powerful thing. But everybody was shocked by what this guy had said. So after the hour's over, everybody is milling around in the studio, and way over here, I see that this white guy who had spoken was with two friends. And then I saw something else. I saw a guy named Sam, who I knew very well, who was an African-American man, prominent in the city, start moving in a beeline toward him. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Sam. Sam worked for the telephone company before they broke up the telephone company into pieces, and he had a great job. His job was director of community relationships. And all Sam did during his whole work week was go around and participate in different civic organizations, the NAACP, the Urban League, United Way. He was on all of their boards, the Interfaith Council of Jacksonville, he was on it. So he was very active. He knew everybody, and everybody knew him. All the people, except this guy's group, all the people in the studio were avoiding this individual. And so, but Sam, I was about right here. I just shook hands with the chief of police. I wanted to make sure I was on his good side. And I looked, and there was Sam going toward this guy. And so I said, I've got to go see what Sam is going to say to this guy. Now, Sam was a wonderful human being. He had 4 children. One of them was very disabled. His job was very important to him. He was a very positive person. So I went over there, and I got over there just about the time Sam began to speak to this guy. And it was going through my mind, what is he going to say? And the first thing he said to him was, young man, I wonder if you had a chance to say everything you wanted to say tonight, because I noticed you just got to speak a few words. And I was like, boy, I wasn't ready for that. And so the young man began to talk about his grievances. And I realized that this young white man had literally no idea that what he was saying was offensive. And that blew my mind. It was like his awareness of situational awareness was not there. And so Sam listened to him and asked him questions as though he, Sam, were genuinely concerned with what this man's grievances were. And then, after this man had exhausted everything he wanted to say, which was quite a bit, Sam said to him, "Young man, I appreciate what you have said to me. Now I want to tell you what it was like for me as a young black man in this city in the 1950s to try to find a job and make a living and feed my kids, and what that struggle was like." And because Sam had listened to the young man listened. And I realized that he was just super naive more than malicious, at least in my reading of the situation. And Sam told him about the hard reality of the discrimination he had faced, that people did not like him because of the color of his skin. And afterward, Sam went over to him, hugged his shoulder, and Sam, who was very publicity savvy, had a reporter in tow from the newspaper, had that reporter take a picture of him and this young man hugging, and that picture was on the second page of the paper the next day. So that, for me, was my first experience of deep listening, of what that actually means. Fast forward 10 years, I had another set of experiences that taught me about deep listening, and it came from getting to know and listening to a guy named Dr. Marshall Rosenberg. Has anybody heard that name before? Well, Dr. Marshall Rosenberg was a PhD in psychology, and in the 1960s, he began to do what he called peacemaking, working with the school system, the government system, etc., doing what he called peaceful dialogue, and he used other names. And by 2000, or shortly thereafter, 2005, he had created an enormous following of people who were being taught by him and learning his methodology in peacemaking, which was basically how to deeply listen to other people. And there is a group, there's groups all over the world, and there's a group here in Philadelphia and other places, but he had a big impact on the world, let's put it that way. And in around 2006, after having gone to some of his workshops in the area I was living at the time, I went to a meeting in Switzerland near Zurich, where there were people from all over the world who were listening to Marshall Rosenberg and teach, and there were people from Germany and England and France and the Middle East and America, and it was quite an interesting gathering. But the core thing he taught was that every human being on the planet has certain basic needs. And we can categorize them different ways. He characterized them as following, with the following list. We all need sustenance. We all need safety. We all need love or affirmation. We all need understanding. We all need an outlet for creativity. We all need recreation, a way to restore our body and mind and spirit. We all need a sense of belonging, a place where we are known and we are accepted. We all need autonomy, which is to say, an agency to lead our own lives as we would choose to lead them. And we all need a sense of meaning and purpose. And so for Rosenberg, every human being is a living system of these dynamic, interrelated needs coming up. And the purpose of life, as he taught it and understood it, is to have all of these important universal needs be honored in ourselves and as we honor them in others. And doing that is the whole purpose of life. But that although we are born to be naturally compassionate and to give and receive the needs of others, a lot of things get in the way. Guilt, fear, anxiety, the burden of bad experiences, innumerable things. But the point of life, as Rosenberg would teach it, is to let the living essence of human being, the yearning for these needs to be fulfilled, happen. I realized when I sat at Rosenberg's feet for a number of years, and he died, I think, in 2006. But as I absorbed his message, I realized that is what Sam was doing, although he had figured it out on his own. And I think that's a pretty powerful message for all of us. Our covenant is a way in which we are being encouraged to respect our own needs and the needs of others. This is why our covenant and our statement of values and principles, this is what it's all about. We live in a society that is so unbelievably polarized, so unbelievably filled with conflict, that it's really hard to think clearly about what it means to listen, what it means to be with others. But this is our core work. So may it be. Amen.